People in.
Good.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. Great to have you here. It's going to be a fun session today. Welcome, one and all to Piano Tech Radio Hour.
Controlled again.
Look at Terry Chamberlain. Good to see you. Hey guys, if you notice that you're having trouble with my internet, let me know. I'm having some glitches today. I can't tell. Our guest Glenn today is saying maybe he's seeing some glitches, but we can't quite tell.
Yeah,
if it's
I had to sign on 3 times.
Oh, signing on in the first place. What about just my internet? Is it going okay? Can you hear me and see me all right?
Yeah,
Okay. Let me test my internet speed one more time. Not that there's too much I can do about it, but just to verify. Okay. Yeah, it's definitely slower than it typically is, but should be good bandwidth. All right. Well, let me do a quick feature of our guest's video and mine. Let's see here, spotlight there. Get a spotlight there, and I'll welcome you all, and we'll get started here momentarily. So, welcome everyone in the Zoom room here, as well as out there in social media land. This is Piano Tech Radio Hour. And what we do here is we gather every Saturday to meet with and learn from the most fascinating and knowledgeable folks in the piano world. This includes manufacturers, rebuilders, musicians, makers of other instruments, and of course, piano techs. Our mutual goal is to become better at our craft, to help each other, and to create an ever more musical world together. Piano Tech Radio Hour is brought to you by Piano Technicians Masterclass. The website is pianotechniciansmasterclass.com, and it's an online learning resource that brings you cutting-edge instruction from piano industry masters without leaving your home. And as I said, that website to learn more is pianotechniciansmasterclass.com. We also have a website, a quick link for you if you want to sign up for these radio hour sessions. What that gets you is to access it every week without any rigmarole. We'll send you the link to Zoom directly and you can join. And then also you get all of our recordings all the way back for a couple of years here in the member area. And to get that, you go to bit.ly/joinptrh. That's bit.ly/joinptrh, all lowercase, no spaces. And we look forward to having you among us. By the way, check your email. You'll see some promotional for after the fact. We just did an awesome masterclass with Doug Gregg, and that was on Thursday. And he taught us all about French polish and the amazing things you can achieve through French polish techniques. And so that masterclass went really well. I'll make sure we add a link here where you can sign up either for the recording of that one lecture, or if you want to just get in our library as a regular subscriber, you can get in to do that as well. And actually, let me, I'll copy the link right now. So I'll put that in the chat. Let me see if I can pull the chat up. My window's a little weird here. There we go. Yeah, if you want to check out that masterclass with Doug Gregg, there's the link to check it out. If you want it right now, you may catch us before we do the price change, or we may have changed it. So if you catch it at 200, you might be able to get the lecture one off for 200. If we've already changed the price, it would be 297. And then you can still get access to it and all of our other content if you just subscribe as a Craftsman member for $79 a month. And by the way, we're just announcing this publicly. Our plan for the rest of the year is to have one masterclass every month for the remainder of the year. And you can mark your calendar for the third Thursdays of every month. Those will be at 3 p.m. Pacific time, 6 p.m. Eastern time. And our next one will feature David Clavins, the revolutionary, pioneering piano designer and maker. And that'll be on the 20th of April. So mark your calendars for that. we'll get a page for if you want to sign up for the one class or for the subscription. Moving forward, we'll get that up soon and share the link with you. So yeah, that'll be really fun. But let's move on to today's guest. And let me bring up some information to introduce him. So today we're talking with Glenn Cuthbertson. You may have heard him add a comment or two recently, but he had been born profoundly deaf. Okay, and he's a piano technician. Now, this would be considered an insurmountable handicap that closes the door for any musical experiences, but with powerful hearing aids, that door was opened for Glenn Cuthbertson. He not only learned to play the piano from a young age, but pursued a career as a concert pianist and a piano technician, as well as piano teacher. And on the side, he builds harps. His own piano is a 1915 Steinway D Concert Grand that he has rebuilt and customized with many upgrades, in particular, a WNG composite action. So everyone, let's welcome Glenn Cuthbertson first to the program. Welcome, Glenn.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Yeah, excellent to have you here and see a bit of visual applause, which is kind of fun. We don't always get that. So it looks like people are appreciative to have you present in the session here today. I would really like to just start off to ask you, when did you really first get interested in the piano at all? How would that even come about?
Well, as we should start right from the beginning. I'm not going to tell you how old I am, but when I was born in 1964, okay, you math would figure it out, I'm 59. The rest of you that are mathematically challenged, I'm not going to tell you. But my parents did not know that I was hard of hearing until I was about a year and a half old. And I saw my dad playing on the piano, monkey see, monkey do. So as soon as I was able to walk and climb on the bench, I would try my Shostakovich and Prokofiev combination. It sounded terrible. And from there, my mom wanted me to do this. And then came the day when I would fit it with my first hearing aid, with the body aid going to one ear, I think it was my right ear, and my hand came down as per usual routine, and I scared the life out of me. A year and a half old. Now, all of a sudden, this thing had a different dimension that I never knew before. And then I started plinking and discovering things, and anything that would ring like a bell or tinkle like a Tinker Toy drum or anything, I was just fascinated by sound right away. It opened up a new realm. And then fast forwarding a few more years, I came home from church one day and I remembered a tune. And I went to the keyboard and picked it out in the middle of C. And my dad heard it and said, we got something going on here. We should do a little duet for talent night coming up. So we did a duet and it went from there. I was about 5. Then a few more years later, I got offered piano lessons because I was always tinkering on it. And my parents figured that being deaf with hearing aids, if I could learn to play the piano even a little bit, I could have some enjoyment out of it. Well, they had no idea what they started. I exceeded anybody's achievement at that time. So 7 years of age, I started doing it. And by the time I was around 11, I was introduced to the wonderful music of Chopin through my dad playing the records often, and he happened to have the Heroic Polonaise. So I would just try to cross through it, and it took me an hour to go through, lots of mistakes and everything else, but I was just determined. And because I liked the music so much, I started trying to compose. My dad played by ear, so I thought it was only normal to also play by ear. So I was able to develop good note reading as well as playing by ear and improvising and so forth. That eventually led to doing gospel arrangements of famous church hymns and so forth. And my big warhorse turned to be the Battle Hymn of the Republic. So it was fairly new just after I was married in 89, so about 1991 at a church. I was all dressed up for the occasion, burgundy curtains behind me, spotlights up above me for stage effect, and a really powerful spotlight from the balcony shone across the keys of a 9-foot Kawai with a heavy action. My arrangement was still new. I was worried about stamina, but anyways, here we go. We're going into that piece, kind of almost a debut. And one thing about hearing aids, they need battery to work. And would you know it, about 3 minutes into the 8 to 9 minute piece, both of my batteries went completely dead. I couldn't hear the piano for the life of me. I mean, nothing. So now what do you do? My visibility is compromised and my hearing is gone. But fortunately, I can look at a keyboard and hear any note in my head. So I could still hear the music in my head, even though my hand was just miming it. I can even feel how loud it's going to be just by playing it. So I went through the whole piece and finished it, went over very well. My wife had no idea what just happened, so I pulled it off. And then I told the audience that you ever have a nightmare where your hearing aid go dead in the biggest piece in a concert? Well, it just happened. Excuse me, folks. I changed my hearing aid batteries on stage, and then carried on from there. So yeah, I've had some pretty interesting experiences with that.
Yeah, I mean, it seems as though almost because of the discrepancy with your hearing ability, but the fact that you have some hearing, it's almost and put an added focus on it, right? Maybe gave you extra appreciation for the auditory experience, where the rest of folks say, well, I'm pretty normal, I'll just take it for granted. You say, well, I've got a little bit of this, let me push it as far as it can go. So what kind of, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, what kind of hearing aid do you require? Does it just make it louder, or is it some sort of electronic device that connects to your auditory neural system? Like, how does this exactly work?
It's just a behind the ear analog hearing aid. It's the most powerful that is available. I currently have the Beltone, but I've gone through a few different ones over the years. It has to be an analog hearing aid because my brain is wired apparently to accept it. I tried digital hearing aid, and they just twist and distort the sound that is unrecognizable. It's just absolutely horrible, and I can't even get more volume out of them. So I need raw horsepower, 500 cubic inches, and get the job done. And so that's what I have to do. Otherwise, without them, I don't even hear a thunderbolt in the sky. I can't hear a lawnmower in front of me.
Yeah, that's interesting. And by the way, I'm about to put a post here in the chat for folks that are following online. If you want to join us on Zoom, I'm going to put the registration link so people can jump on to the Zoom call if they'd like to. And this reminds me of something that might be of interest to this audience if you aren't already aware. There's actually a movie that's called The Sound of Metal. Have you seen this, Glenn?
I can't recall.
You should definitely watch this movie. And if anybody's seen it, feel free to comment in the chat. I
do recall a movie about Liberace.
Okay.
And he goes deaf for a moment. He's playing and can't hear it. And then he goes in and out. He had an operation he did play that movie. I don't know what it's called, but that movie I've seen.
So The Sound of Metal is relatively recent. I think it came out within the past couple of years. I think you can watch it on Netflix. And it's about a guy who's a heavy metal drummer, and he loses his hearing pretty much completely over the course of a short period of time. And then, he has to kind of face this challenge, and along with a bunch of other challenges he's dealing with. And part of the plot of the movie is that he's looking to get one of these more sophisticated implants that kind of manufactures hearing ability for people who have lost the ability, lost the actual sensory equipment of the ears, right?
It's the cochlear ear implant.
Yes. And they do a really great job of both representing what it's like for him as he's losing his hearing, but also representing what you just talked about. When you get those cochlear implants, you think it's going to sound like beautiful, and music in particular, from what I'm aware, is one of the worst things to listen to with a cochlear implant, just because they're trying to process something that's too complicated. And if you're curious, right, if you've ever been on a Zoom call and have somebody start trying to play the piano, and you go, wait a second, why is it fading in and out and it's getting all glitchy and stuff like that? The cochlear implant experience is ostensibly far worse than that. But just another interesting tidbit on that movie, The Sound of Metal, the creator of that film has been one of my piano tuning clients, a very fascinating guy. Yeah, and I met him far before he made that movie, when he was still developing, kind of his abilities and becoming a higher level director. So definitely check it out. Great movie.
Okay.
All right. So going on to some more questions about how things have progressed for you, in terms of like your sense of pitch, right?
Mhm.
You said like you're able to kind of like pick some things out on the piano.
Yeah.
What is it like in terms of, do you have pretty good relative pitch?
Yeah.
Are you able to make out?
Let's define what absolute pitch is. Absolute
Mhm.
pitch means that you can hear a sound and tell what frequency to the hertz.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody can do that. That's what you have a machine for.
Mm-hmm.
So you would have a very accurate relative pitch that would put you very close into it. So I demonstrated with my student where I close the eye and I play a note and I just kind of bang up and down the keys and I tell them what the note is immediately. So I can look at music, I can look at the keyboard, and I can hear the pitch in my head. So it's just something that I just developed it by the course of time. And part of what it is, as a piano tuner, I would, you focus and you just get to know what you're looking at and hearing a sound to it. And just getting into piano tuning, my dad gave me a book one Christmas on how to tune pianos. And I don't know where I got it, but I got a tuning hammer, the felt mute, rubber mute, and the a C5 tuning fork. I followed the instruction, and I was able to, after a while, with a little bit of practice, do a very acceptable job. I mean, it wouldn't please the hoity-toity crowd, but it was a lot better than the honky-tonky crowd would put up with too. So between the two, I was able to definitely train my ear, but I can only go so far and no further. See, my hearing curve will allow me to go up the scale to C7, and then it goes straight across to C8. So between C7 and C8, a lot often, I do not hear a sense of going up in pitch. It just all kind of sounds flat. And it just get, even with the hearing aids out of my register. Without my hearing aids, I can play my piano behind me moderately loud and not hear a sound in the room. I'd have to absolutely give the full gunpowder to it, and then only the bottom 2/3 of the piano I will barely hear. But with the hearing aids, you can play the quietest C8 key, and I'll hear the click of it, but I won't define a pitch. So my hearing is going to be limited, and I know what's normal for me, which is not going to be normal for you. But that didn't stop me from being able to do it. And then, of course, with the electronic tuning devices, with the Soniston and AccuTuner 2, and then eventually over to the Verituner, that leveled the playing field for me. It gave me no disadvantage to be deaf, but I know what a good unison sounds like in the setters and setters. Then for the mechanical skills, I was always in my dad's workshop, tinkering with whatever humble tools he had there, making anything from model cars to model airplanes to this, to my crowning achievement in my teenage years, pinball machines. I've been designing pinball machines, and that's where I learned to do a lot of thinking and tinkering and just create things out of nothing in my hand. And so you learn to just improvise whatever's there and, to put the whole process together. And that was all preparatory work for me to be able to get into doing piano repairs and eventually into the Western Looking Growth conversion, and also into the hype building that we're going to get into. So let's see how the time's going here. Just want to make sure we don't run out of time.
Yeah, I think we're doing okay. I understand you have a graphic over there too to demonstrate kind of what your hearing scale looks like. Let's take a quick look at that so people can check it out.
So this is going to be, let's get that. There we go. This is going to be a typical sort of hearing chart. You're going to have your decibels here, and it's going to be negative. And then you're going to have your frequency response from, say, 25, 50s, and so forth, all the way up to about 5,000, which is around C8. Good hearing will hear C9, and exceptional hearing will hear up to C10. So this represents my basic generic hearing loss. I need at least 70 decibels to put me at where everybody else hears at the normal assumed threshold of hearing at 0. So that's what my hearing aids have to compensate for. And as we get to the top end, I have a negative 100 decibel of volume that has to be gained to put me here before I can use anything about that. Unfortunately, I have an extremely high tolerance of pain. I can tolerate 140 decibels, no problem. But what does that look like? If you look at this, you can read the word loud. That's what you would hear. But I hear everything more like this, where it's compressed. So this would be my stop, and that would be my loud. And that's what I put up with, where you get all this. So if I take a tuning fork to my ear, I'll hear it in 6 inches, but less than 6 inches away, or more than 6 inches away, I can't hear it in the room. My wife can hear it in the next room. I checked with a few students of mine, they can hear a tuning fork in the next room. Ding, ding, it's just gone in a matter of a little bit of space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting to hear about that too. And do you know, like sort of biologically what's going on in your system? Is it the cilia within the cochlea that are somehow damaged in some way, or?
Yeah, it's going to be the cochlea, which is the irreparable part of it. If it's a hammer, anvil, and stirrup bone part, you can get outer reconstruction, or if it's the eardrum, people have had that. I've heard of some people having abnormal bone growth that separates the chambers, and when they make a hole in that, the fluid inside can go through and operate it, and everything else is good. So my brain is fine, my auditory nerves is fine, it's my cochlea, it's a little snail shell, the size of a pea, roughly behind the eyeball. That the part that's not developed. And if you were to open it up, you'd have some 40,000 hairs across there, going from the base down to the treble, and mine are all sort of lying down. So it takes more energy to move them instead of like this. So that's not something you repair. A cochlear implant is a no-go for me, because I can work so well with what I have that I would actually be committing audio suicide to try that method. So if I didn't have any hearing at all, then the cochlear implant is your only hope to get something, but not for me. Not for me.
I want to have I want to have now like an auditory neuroscientist come in now. I mean, I can do a basic overview. Maybe I should for one of these sessions, but of how the actual hearing system works, because it's fascinating. The cochlea is a bit of a gigantic soundboard coiled up into a snail shell form, with little hairs sticking out of it that resonate with different frequencies. So it's very fun. All right, let's talk about your Steinway. So basically, guys, I mean, I gave an overview in the email. We want to talk a little bit about Glenn's history. We want to talk a little bit about his Steinway piano, and then we'll cover some of his harp building experiences. Of course, if you have any questions or something, you can put them in the chat. And if we, want to explore something further that we missed today or didn't get to go deeply into, we can always have Glenn back. But yeah, tell us a little bit about this Steinway. It's right behind you, right?
Yes, it's a 1915 Steinway D, and the serial number is actually right between the two that Rachmaninoff owned. So it's kind of a little bit of history there. The way I acquired it, I first played on it in the church basement when I was a teenager for a couple of wedding receptions on different occasions. And it was in rough shape. The lacquer on it was just like elephant skin. It played heavy, and it didn't really have a treble that appealed to me. Like, okay, fine. But it was nice to try to play. I did a few concerts at that time on there as well, and it was just like playing a Mack truck. It was awful. Well, I lived in Ontario for 3 years, in 93 to 95, and on the way home, I had bought a Yamaha C7 for $9,000. And a year later, I was able to make an even trade with the church to give me the Steinway and put my Yamaha upstairs, and they can take their old worn-out Heinzman and put that downstairs where it belongs. So they have a better piano upstairs. I got the Steinway, and it all worked out well. So I got it roughly for a $9,000 initial purchase price, which is steal.
By the way, we learned in our master class on Thursday from Doug, we learned how you can take the alligator finish on a piano. And I know you actually did a complete refinish on this one, I believe.
We stripped it and everything. Yeah, we started over.
But there are some techniques to take that as is and turn it back into a high gloss finish, just by using polishing techniques, which is fascinating. Wow. But yeah, go ahead and tell us. So when did you plan from getting it from the start exactly what you wanted to do to improve it, or has it just been kind of like a piece by piece, process of, hey, let's do this.
Yeah,
let's
it
try
was the
this.
process. We took it over to my friend's place in Surrey, close to where we live here. And we proceeded to strip it down. The plate came out, we relacquered the plate, and we just trimmed the soundboard in a few places and completely replaced the original Steinway Action with a new Renner Action and Renner Blue hammers. And I thought that was going to solve everything. And when we assembled it and strung it up, to my utter shock and dismay, the Action was almost heavier than what I started with. So it was like, now what? I'm brand new to this. And just going by the coaching of what he did, because he was working on Becksteins and a number of other ones. And so I had to come up with all sorts of things and trying to put springs into it to help take some weight out. I didn't know about balancing anything. So it was a tough piano to play for a while. And then it also proved to be very unstable for tuning. And unwittingly, because I didn't string it up, he used tuning pins that were a quarter inch shorter than what I could have used. So that already compromised. We didn't replace the soundboard or the pin block, but everything else we did the finish on it, so it looked good. So about 8 years ago, I decided enough with the tuning instability. I'm taking it into my shop. By that point, I had already rebuilt about 10 to 15 other pianos completely with new actions, restringing, new finish, and they turned out very, very well. So I was confident to take mine and do it over again. So I did this finish here, and that was about 40 coat of Varathane with an automotive polish on the end, so it's nearly flawless. So that's quite an achievement, and I wouldn't want to do it again. It's brutal work. But I replayed it, I gilded the plate to more of a copper, like the Bösendorfer. If I had a choice, it would be a Bösendorfer Imperial, but I just don't have that kind of money. So this is what I had, and I restrung it. And at that time, I also was looking into the Wappen pin system, which kind of came and fell out of vogue. I don't know what's happening with them lately. They kind of disbanded. But that was to try to get more sustain. And with my hearing compromise, sustain is very important in the upper register. So it was just very short sustain, and it was not musical. And other pianos, especially little upright, they'd have some wonderful sustain, and my big piano doesn't. That was really annoying. So I did the restringing, all that, but I still converted the hammers over to the Ari Isaac hammers. And again, the touch weight was a problem because it was just simply too heavy. So the sound was acceptable, but the touch weight was a major problem. And that's where I got this little kit from a piano technician friend of mine that got me introduced to the Western Nickel and Gross composite Action. It's a very small kit, and you basically have your repetition made of composite. And what's so special about it is they took all the weight of it and as much as possible tried to bring it to the pivot point here. So the moment of inertia is brought here instead of spread out like the wooden Action. They can make it stronger with less material. You can see that the balancing beam on top is very thin. You also see that the bushings on here are not cloth bushing. They use a proprietary solid hard bushing that doesn't shrink or swell, and it has 100-year performance life. There's just no friction in there whatsoever. So then we get the hammer shank, and we got variables in there. We can move the position of the knuckle and adjust it to what you want. So it's very flexible for adjusting Action geometry. And let's see the next part in here. The back check, it's another neglected detail. We can see that the back checks are very small. Usually they're much bigger, and it's wooded there just so that it's strong enough to hold it. With the plastic, it is no problem for strength. And I can take my back check into a 3/8 check instead of the typical 5/8. So it just improves the back checking tremendously. Another factor that came in this little kit was the capstan. They're made of aluminum instead of brass. The brass is about 3 times heavier than this, so that already is affecting your touch weight, which adds up to your inertia problems. And furthermore, brass will always tarnish in the top, so you get friction there. This has an oxide finish on there that will never, ever turn it up, it always remained very, very slick and slippery. So that sold me into looking into it, and that was in 2019, that I finally went ahead and got the big kit that had all the other features. So we'll look into that a little bit, but before we do, I want to show you the original running action that we got here. I'm going to compare that dimensionally to the repetition here. Now this one didn't have the heel on it because we're going to discuss that in a bit. But the biggest problem is the hammer shank. When you get a wooden hammer shank and you got a felt bushing in there, if there's any humidity changes, it just doesn't move very well. And that is a problem in many places, that you get the sluggish action and it comes right here. And there's a tremendous force that's being put here to take the inertia of the hammer that puts a lot of pressure here. And that just adds to the friction, and it's a big problem. So we compare that to the Western nickel and groat. Oh yeah, we got no friction there whatsoever. And that stays constant and it never wears out. So that was serious stuff that sold me over. That in conjunction with the David Stanwood protocol of balancing the keys with his mathematics and so forth. I did several pianos with that, and it made a big difference. Now I've got less inertia, and I touch weight from about 52 down to 49 grams across the keyboard. So smooth, so supple, the control is just unbelievable. Let's just get into some of the kits here a little bit. These are sample parts that you would get if you were to buy the kit, which falling apart here, which not big of you. You can see that. Over here we have different flanges, and over here we have different heels, different heights. So it's fully customizable to adapting to an action. Sometimes you have some old actions that just simply have no new parts, like maybe a Kanabi from the prior to the 1980s, and you want to convert it because it's a beautiful piano, but you can't play it and you can't get the parts for them anymore. Western nickel and groat makes it possible. We also see that they can be spring loaded here with a screw that you see just inside there that can adjust it. And the beauty of that is with a little bit of tension on there, not a lot. You don't want it snapping up, but you want to have just a bit of tension. You can take out the weight from that side of the key and remove lead in the other side of the key to compensate for that. So you reduce your inertia in the key itself, and you also have the benefit of just being able to have a more responsive, lighter action. So once you get all balanced in, just adjusting the screws, you can really fine tune the touch weight of the piano across the top there, that is precise like you could never have before. So they've done a tremendous job with designing this stuff. Looking at the next set of parts here, hopefully you can see that over here. We have flanges that are for the hammer shank, and they go through all the sizes and styles available. We have a variety of balance wheel and front wheel pins in here. We have several sizes of captains. We even have an assortment of knuckles. So you can go from 8 to 11 millimeter knuckles. And the beauty of that is it's not round, it's oval. So you don't change the distance that your jack will move, but you change the height only. And they are next to impossible to destroy. Back check, you mentioned that already. Let off buttons, all sorts of stuff in there. And then you start getting to a variety of hammer shanks that are available. They have the Flex 1, 2, and 3. And I use a 3 because it's just simply the strongest one. Oh, sorry, the Flex 1, my mistake. It's the thickest one. And the difference between that and a wooden shank is that the bend in a wooden shank cannot be made consistent because it's an organic material. The weight of it, for your strike weight, that changes. So you have an unsurmountable variable that affects voicing and everything else. This thing, you're starting with a shank that is stiffer, lighter, with the weight transfer to the back here, so it will pivot faster than a typical wooden shank will. You can also adjust with the knuckle position going there, so it's very high adaptability. The next one is the next.
Oh, I think that is on Glenn's side. I thought it was me because I have a little bit of trouble today. But Glenn said his internet can be a little spotty at times, and so we'll cut back to having a discussion or conversation here about some other stuff, and we'll await him joining again. It shouldn't take too long. I was actually about to put into the chat here. Let's let me see if we want to add my spotlight there, and then we'll wait on Glenn. But yeah, a couple of things. If I was just going to put it in the chat anyways, if this is a situation where you've just joined because for the first time, or you're not a subscriber to Piano Tech Radio Hour, make sure that you consider joining us for this. It helps support the program. And it's pretty easy to get on board. So I'll put that into the chat here for those of you that join us today for signing up for just this session. And so basically, what you get with Piano Tech Radio Hour subscription. Here, let me get this link formatted properly. That should work. What you get with the Piano Tech Radio Hour subscription is anytime we have one of these master classes or one of these radio hours, you'll get an email in advance with the Zoom link, so you'll be able to just jump on very easily. And yeah, I see a message here from Ernest who says he just sent a message to Glenn, not delivered. Internet speed is a bit slow, unfortunately. It's actually been quite functional today, so I think we'll probably just be able to pause and we'll have him back soon. Yeah, so as a PTRH subscriber, you'll get an email in advance for a session like this with the Zoom link, so you can just jump on. If you're not a subscriber, you'll have to pay attention to our emails that go out, and we will still offer you free registration, but you do have to sort of click the link and then register individually for the session, and then you'll get some emails that'll give you the Zoom link. So it's a little bit more belabored of a process, but we do try to offer free access as well for those of you that don't have the budget to support the program. And then in addition to getting the access for each session easily, also if you can't attend, you can go review the recording. We usually have the recording of each of these sessions up within a few days, so you can check that out in the member area, no problem. And then also you'll have access not only to today's recording, but everything pretty much back to day one when we first started this thing, which is pretty cool. Lots of great stuff over the years now. We've had Steve Brady, and we've had David Clavins, who we're going to have this masterclass with on the 20th of April. He's been a part of it. We've had Rick Baldison. We've had pretty much anybody and everybody. We've had Mario Egrek, all the names you'll recognize in the piano industry, coming by, stopping in, and checking things out with us. The other thing that is useful for you guys to know about is the podcast, and that one is Piano Tech Radio. Let me just pull up the link so I get it correctly. So it's pianotechradio.com. If you go to pianotechradio.com/subscribe, then you will get access to the podcast. And in that case, again, it's also free content. It's just you don't get the video, and it's also a bit delayed. So we're releasing content now from back in the day, and going back in historically. And we do one a week. We release those on every Wednesday at actually, let's see here. Let's bring this up. So you can see the site as well. Let me adjust the settings here. This is the Piano Tech Radio Hour site. And on the site, you can see, the various episodes that we've created. Most recent one, we had Chris Brown a release where he's talking about some of the principles and concepts he uses in his process of tuning and regulating and repairing pianos. Bill Monroe was last week's episode. David Anderson's talking about his perspectives on pianos and concert level regulation as well. This episode with Eric Johnson was quite popular. I noticed we got many downloads for that one. You might want to check that one out. But yeah, all of these episodes are really great. And the nice thing I'm finding about the podcast is, people can listen to it in their car. They don't have to be here on Saturday. You could be doing the dishes. You could be working in the workshop. You could be lifting weights, going for a run, whatever. And you can check that stuff out. So make sure you go there, subscribe. And also when you get a chance, write a review for us on iTunes and Spotify. That really helps spread the word. I see that Glenn is back, so we'll be able to join back up with him in a moment. But yeah, make sure you go check out the Piano Tech Radio, our website. I think you guys will enjoy that. All right, without further ado, let's look and find our fellow Glenn here. Here he is. And we will add a spotlight. Hey, Glenn, how's it going? Are you back? I think. Let me message him. Hi, Glenn. Are you really back? Or is it your ghost? We'll see. Oh man, let's see here. I think maybe we lost him again. No matter. I was in the midst of explaining some stuff, so that's fine. The other thing that's worth chatting about is leaving us some feedback, for not necessarily leaving us feedback online publicly or anything like that, but it's always useful to have your guys feedback on just the different programs that we're doing, how well we're executing, how you like the guests, any comments, suggestions for us to improve upon things there are always appreciated. And so I do have a link for that form, and I'll put that in the chat here in a moment. I don't think I was able to. We'll send that link here in a sec.
Am I back?
Oh, I think you are. I can hear you. That's
Yeah,
important.
I can hear you and I can see you. Okay. I don't know what
Cool.
happened. I'm just having a bad day with internet here. And my end, I'm not sure where.
Okay, no problem. All right, let me put you back on screen.
Okay.
Okay,
Try
there
it.
you are.
At least like
All right.
this. Yeah, there we go.
Perfect.
Okay. Sorry about that break. I was April Fool joking, but it's nobody laughing.
I'm laughing.
So let's so to continue on with the Western Nickel Growth kit, we also get a full sample of the repetitions. So all of these can be tried out on your piano to be able to do it. Now, one of the things that makes it very, very interesting and important with the placing of the heel is what's called the half flow. So you can see the diagram here. You want to have the line from your repetition through the captain to the base of the balance rail. And you can see the white keys over here being further back than the black key creates a substantially different angle. So when you get a repetition and it has the same heel, one of them is compromised over the other. Well, with the Western Nickel and Growth system, you're able to take two different heel heights, and the taller one is for the black keys, and the shorter one is for the white keys, and that's what I've done with mine. So you're going to see a captain just kind of doing perfect across there on the key, but you're actually compensating for this distance so that you reduce the friction here on a half flow. If it's key is at rest, you have the captain below. When you have the full blow, the captain is just above. But as it passes through, that's a magic line. And this is the kind of detail that Western Nickel Growth had been able to compensate for. So those are very, very important things. I'm not commissioned by them to stay there. It's just my experience, and I really, really swear by the part. And if you're not going with it, you're kind of a throwback and slowing down the advancement of piano technology. That's just my honest opinion. Let's see what else we can do. Watson Richmond Growth also had various tools, and some of it I have been able to design and make for myself. This is a key dip weight, 400 grams. And by adjusting this and using a digital caliper, you can set the depth of the key. So when you put it on there, you have a consistent weight in every key. And that allowed you to check with the neighboring keys. If it sits high, the key dip is too low. If it puts down the keys, it's too high or too deep, and you can adjust it and get a very even key dip across the keyboard. Another jig that I made would be just a weight in here and a screw that would be 6 millimeters. And by putting in front of the key, of the white key, and measuring how high the hammers go on the other side, you can get a pretty accurate action ratio. Bolduc had a key weight system on there with graded. So I built it for myself, have a little milling machine, and you can adjust the weight to whatever gram you want by moving it across. So you can either adjust it down weight or your up weight. And these are all things that I've done with my Steinway just to get a really superb, accurate feel all the way across. So recently, I was always looking for more sustain in the piano, and that just seemed to be the holy grail of piano tones. Sometimes it's not the attack, not necessarily the volume, but how well did it sustain? And a number of my notes were just choking out. You hear it, and it just died quickly. And if you put the pedal down, it excites the other string, but it kind of gives a sonar ping. It's just not a musical sound. You want to always have the killer octave kind of sing as much as possible about the sustain of the rest of the string joining in. So I came up with this jig here that is a double perfect. First of all, you can measure the height of the string underneath in the key bed for the Chris Brown type of action regulating bench. But it's also spring loaded so that you can put it under the string and have the 3 strings sit on top of it. And if anything is proud or whatever, those ring, and you can level the string with it across the keyboard. So this is a really, really invaluable tool that I didn't realize my strings were not as level as it could have been. Once I did all that and removed some of the top belt of the hammer, my treble just came alive like I had never heard before. And the sustain was noticeably improving by 2 to 3 seconds, and some of them were just singing even longer than that. And so that was a revelation for the action, voicing, and so forth. And then we also experimented a little bit with riblets. These are just small pieces of spruce that get screwed. I'm always covering my face here, sorry. That get screwed between the ribs underneath the soundboard. And the way you test if you need it is you get a small vice grip and put it on a bridge pin, the back one, and listen to the note. And if your sustain improves substantially, that means you don't have a good impedance match with the string energy to the soundboard. It's just sucking energy out. So I installed a few of these riblets in there, and it started helping quite a bit. I put in a longer one, and that helped some more. But my E flat 5 was just always a dead note, and the rest of them sang, but that was always dead. So I made one out of maple, and it stiffened up and added a bit more weight, and now that register is just starting to sting more. So it's not always how you voice the hammers. My limited experience there didn't make me an expert, but all those things contributed to improving the tone quite a bit. I've still yet to do some work with putting a very thin CA glue on the front bridge pin to get rid of false beats, because if you put a screwdriver against it, it sings true. As soon as you let a screwdriver up, it starts to have false beats. So I'm going to try that in a time. And also, Chris Chernobyl has done some really wonderful work with the Paraloid B72 that I've yet to incorporate in the top octave, and just see if I can just bring that and give me more hearing in there. So these are all just a work in progress that my piano's had over the years. So.
Cool. So I'm glad that you got to share a lot about your piano, the Steinway, and the process and the W&G stuff. We actually haven't spent too much time exploring W&G on this program, so it's really good to have those insights. I know there's, people who say there's drawbacks and things, and some of them might have to do with tone or something like that. But yeah, I'm pretty much sold here for most of the functionality of a WNG, and surprised it's not used more regularly in sort of new piano manufacture. But I guess it gives us a job. We could do more regulation work and stuff, since the pianos are
Yeah.
not as consistent. But so we had some slides from you on your harp projects. Should we go through those? I mean, we only have about 5 minutes left. We could save it for another day, or we could do a quick overview. I'm inclined to save it for another day just because we're running out of time.
Okay.
But
Sure.
what are
sure,
your
we can
what
do
are-
that.
Okay, that sounds good. Maybe just because I have it queued up, I will we'll share like a sneak peek. So maybe I'll just share like a couple of slides, and maybe you give an intro, and
Sure.
it'll wet people's whistle for the final presentation. So give me 1 second, and I will bring that up. Let's do a full screen here on this. Somebody just wants to enter. Who are these people that show up about 5 minutes before we end? I don't know. Maybe they just have their time zones confused. All right, here we go. And let's just give people a little sneak peek here. So first of all, we won't share this, but as part of the presentation, this is actually somebody performing on the harp, which we would be discussing, that Glenn so diligently developed and worked on. And then can you give us just like an overview about the harp here, to get people excited about coming back for when we talk about it?
Sure. This here is a photo of a harp that is being fitted so that the carcass in the back with the soundboard and the backboard, which is shown in there, and the base and the pillar and the neck will all fit together when you do further work on it. So this is a project in the raw, and there's a number of steps to go through between this and the final product that you saw and the video opening.
Yeah.
So,
And I guess what I can do is I can maybe I'll jump through here real quick and kind of fast forward to the end so that people can get a little bit of a view of where that ends up. Pretty nice, actually. You got the two photos overlap pretty nicely. This is basically the finished product, right?
that's a finished product, yes. So the first one is in the rough. We were just getting started, making sure everything fits, so that sequential processes don't change. You just have to have that reference point first, and then all the other steps to show that we added.
Yeah. And a couple other preview slides. Check this out. So very ornate carving work that Glenn put into this, as well as the actual creation of the structural elements. So it'll be fun to hear about that when we do. All right, that's all you get for now. Get you excited about coming back. But let's see here. Oh, Kathy made a comment here. Let's see. Kathy said, Glenn, this has been fascinating. Congratulations on all your achievements thus far. Very informative. Thank you. I'm from Canada too. And she somehow found a way to insert some musical notes into the Zoom chat. So that's very creative and fun. We appreciate that, Kathy. All right. Any last words? I know you have a website for your harp building. You might even have a separate one for your piano work. Why don't you share?
I don't have one for my piano work. I have one for my harp, and you can forward that if you want to. Yeah, basically, sorry about the glitches in here, but hope you found it interesting, because if not, I owe all of you an honorary degree in astronomy for staring into space. So, but yeah, if we can have another session another time, we can go further into my piano and of course into the harp, and I would be delighted to come back another time. So
cool. Yeah, and I'm looking it up right now. I'll share the link for your site. It's what is the web address for your website?
centerstageharps.blogspot.
Okay, perfect.
Blogspot.ca, yeah.
Perfect. And I will put that in the Zoom chat here, just in case people want to explore more. I know you've got some cool photos there as well, so people can check those out. I'll also put that in our social media chat, so people on YouTube and Facebook can check it out. And then that will give us reason now to wrap up here. So I will walk us out. So thank you, Glenn, for joining us. We've reached the end of another musical journey here at Piano Tech Radio Hour. As always, we're brought to you by Piano Technicians Masterclasses, cutting edge instruction from piano industry masters without leaving your home. For those of you that joined us, as I said, by signing up just for this session individually, you could make your life more convenient and subscribe to Piano Tech Radio Hour. It's just $16 a month. You get the recording of today's session in a member area, as well as automatic registration for each week's new session. You could sign up at bit.ly/join-PTRH. That's bit.ly/PTRH. /join-PTRH. bit.ly/join-PTRH. All right, we'll see you all again next week. Thanks for being here. I also put a link in the chat if you want to check out Douglas Gregg Masterclass on French polish. Make sure you give us some feedback. We always appreciate that so we can improve. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast. All right, everyone. We'll see you next time.
Thanks.